For just a moment, regardless of your political views, gender, or background, think about how women politicians are portrayed in the mass media. In some cases, they are viewed as strong, breaking glass ceilings left and right. For the most part, though, there are extreme discrepancies between the treatment of men and women politicians in the media.
I don't think she would have had any political job ever were it not for her husband.
Look like the poor victim of her husband's misbehavior.
Hillary likes to play the victim.
Very good at playing the professional victim.
She's a professional victim.
She's a victim. It's the reason she's running, be the first woman. So they're going to praise her cervix. I mean, what else is there?
What is the rationale for a Hillary Clinton presidency being so tied to the failed policies of the past? It's been one thing, that she's a woman.
Mr. Trump believes Mrs. Clinton is incompetent, corrupt, and would not even be in the presidential arena if she weren't a woman.
Wow. Hillary constantly reminding us during last night's debate, she's a woman.
Hillary Clinton has played the woman card. I think that's a true statement.
She said, vote for me because I'm a woman.
To better understand the treatment of women politicians in the media today, we must first remember how they have been portrayed historically. Since the birth of the United States, women have been fighting an uphill battle to be involved in government. The negative opinions of those who do not want a woman anywhere near D.C., let alone in the Oval Office, can be enough to stop a woman from running. The media only worsens this.
There are those who make the contention that no woman should ever dare to aspire to the White House, that this is a man's world, and that it should be kept that way.
Margaret Chase Smith was the first Republican woman to run for president. She was a 3-term senator from Maine. The day she announced, Washington Post columnists had already dubbed her campaign non-serious.
The idea of a woman running for president of the United States wasn't taken seriously.
In the 1960s, just over half of Americans would vote for a well-qualified woman for president. Although the number is now in the lower 90s, women still face similar scrutiny and outright sexism from the media in their presidential campaigns.
Is this country ready to accept you, do you think, as a national candidate?
There's got to be some downside to having a woman president, right? Something that may not fit with that office.
Men won't vote for Hillary Clinton because she reminds them of their nagging wives.
When Hillary Clinton speaks, men hear, take out the garbage.
She raises her voice, and when a lot of women do, you know, it's as I say, it reaches a point where every husband in America has heard it one time or another.
I get so frustrated when I'm watching political discourse or like the news and stuff, and with the women they focus on like what they were wearing or how they were talking and things you just like don't hear about with men.
Which designers do you prefer?
What designers of clothes?
Yeah.
Would you ever ask a man that question?
Probably not.
With men, like you don't hear a breakdown of the analysis of like the color of the tie that the guy was wearing, but you'll hear like a whole section on like the type of shoes she was wearing or like the color of her jacket and what that meant.
We actually have a split screen of the two women, and you can see there is a big difference between what Jackie Smith was wearing, although it's being covered by our, there we go.
So when you look at the calculation that goes into everything that Hillary Clinton does, for her to argue that she was not aware of what she was communicating by her dress is like Barry Bonds saying he thought he was rubbing down with flaxseed oil.
When women politicians do not show enough emotion, they are often
described as cold, unlikable.
One of the most robotic statements I've ever seen.
Calculating, manipulative.
Hillary Clinton is a stiff.
And when they show too much emotion, it is exaggerated into a colossal weakness.
When Hillary Clinton during the New Hampshire primary choked up, it was suddenly described as her great breakdown.
And it was as close to a breakdown as I've ever seen Hillary have. She just is letting her emotions fall out of her. She's bewildered. Can't help it. Bewildered, frustrated.
It is an absolutely ancient mindset to think that a woman cannot contain herself enough to run a country, to run a position in politics, and that is what they constantly harp on.
Not only do women politicians face constant judgment pertaining to their appearance and emotions, many of those who are in leadership positions are also scrutinized with questions founded in traditional gender roles.
They wonder, what is she going to do with her children? How is she going to be able to take care of her children if she has a position in politics?
I spoke with Kellyanne Conway yesterday and asked her how she would respond to the question of how she is going to be able to manage her family and a demanding job.
And it raises the issue of how much time will she have to dedicate to her newborn child.
Never, ever, 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 ever has a male candidate been asked who's taking care of the children.
And that is the way that women are talked about in politics. That is the way that women are represented. And that's why, as life goes on, as women grow up, they do not want to be in politics.
Little boys and little girls, when they're 7 years old, an equal number want to be president of the United States when they grow up. But then you ask the same question when they're 15, and you see this massive gap emerging.
And if women make up 51% of the U.S. population and are 56% of all voters, why then do we have such an imbalance in Congress?
Social learning theory is the idea that people learn from observation, which includes media consumption. Since the media represents female politicians in a negative light, and women are the minority in Congress, girls may think that they are a better fit for roles outside of the government. Because of this, fewer women run for public office.
You watch a little bit of news around any women politician, you're just like, they're being treated so terribly. It's like making me really frustrated. I would never want to run for office for anything, and I feel like I can't imagine like what young girls are thinking.
What Hannah said about not wanting to run for public office due to her observation of the media's mistreatment of female politicians rings true for many women across America. In a study by American University,
across the board, there was about a 16 percentage point gender gap in political ambition.
They've done this survey twice, and the gap didn't shrink between 2001 and 2011.
Considering the gender gap did not shrink in 10 years, it depicts a serious need for the media to change its portrayals of women politicians. More positive representations, when considering the social learning theory, may eventually result in an increase in women in government positions. Ultimately, this change could be the catalyst needed to alter the demographics of politics for good.